Good evening. Welcome to SAFC Fan TV. For this, our end of season review. It's not after a game and it's not before a game, so it's all a bit of a different format. But I mean, I'll say mine. Thank God it's over. There you go. End of show. No, right. Yeah, we've had hell of a season. I'm sure you both guys will agree. Finishing with 56 points after 46 games and only 6 points off relegation. Did you predict that at the start of the season, Mr. Bowers?
Well, you said we've had an eventful season, but it's like eventful, not in a good way, is it, really? No, I wouldn't have imagined that at the start of the season, but it's kind of weird because if you'd swap the seasons round, the mood probably would be a lot more different. It probably would be first season, well, in the end, comfortably stayed up. I know 6 points, but we were like confirmed safe a few games towards the end. And then you finish in the playoffs this year, then it looks better. But as we know, football isn't always linear. So, yeah, I'm like I said, season review, glad it's all over. The end.
Yeah, Jacob, how are you doing?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. A mixture of emotions, I should put it, looking back on how the season ended, in particular compared to how it started.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think it's all down to the management and how it's been run?
It's difficult. I think it's a combination of things, really. I mean, we'll touch on this a little bit later on, but yeah, mistakes have been made. A lot more mistakes have been made this season than there has been in many of the previous seasons. But we're responsible for our own downfall in terms of where we ended up finishing at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's. I'd love to point fingers, but I think there's too many places to point them at the moment. Michael, how do you think we would have fared if we'd have kept Mowbray and not gone through all the turmoil we had? I know that's a hell of a speculation, not including his illness, if he was with us all the way.
Well, at the time that he was sacked, we obviously didn't know that was going to happen, did we? I've been someone that I felt that sacking Mowbray wasn't necessarily the wrong call, even in hindsight. It's just that who we replaced him with or downgraded on him with, let's be brutally honest. But if you look at Mowbray, I mean, it's funny because if you can go back 5 months to when Mowbray was sacked, and then you find out what's going to happen. So if someone had you this little Back to the Future time machine where you go forward the next 5 months and you look at how it's going to pan out, if you sack Mowbray, you keep Mowbray, don't you? But it's just been an absolute car crash since then. So to answer your question, probably would have fared a bit better with Mowbray, but I doubt it would have been a huge amount better. But as I said before, I think with Mowbray going, it was just catastrophic, wasn't it? I think the problem is that Mowbray goes and then all the problems get exposed, but also it's the football's a lot less attractive to watch. So we've kind of gone from being a very exciting team to one that looks very, very turgid on the eye. So I'll just quickly say before I forget, Mickey Stewart, great comment. Good evening, lads. Jack Shields, rest in peace. You guys obviously have said your piece on this channel. That tribute video was great, and yeah, I'll just say rest in peace to him because I mean I wasn't a very close friend of his, but I knew enough about. I interacted with him enough, and I've known him enough to know what a great lad he was, and he'll be sadly missed.
Yeah, definitely. Like you mentioned, our tribute video, I thought it was so hard to film. So, yeah, let's not choke up again. Breathe. We'll go to the comments quickly before we come to you, Jacob, just so we don't miss any. Paul Armstrong, hi. Colin Majors says hi. DJ Sizzler Watson's in. He says, good evening, everyone. Ipswich took a gamble, spent good money and got 160 million. Ryan McCormick, good evening, everyone. David Walker says hi, and thank God the season's over. I think it's a consensus at the moment. I hope your broadband is working properly, MB says.
So far, so good. So far, so good.
Yeah, and obviously you read out Mickey's comment there. Give me your highlights. Give me your best moment from this season. I know it's a difficult question, that one.
Probably I'd say Jack Clark's man of the match performances in the first half of the season that got us out the mire.
Yeah.
In Mowbray's tenure until he was back in December. Hard to pick out. And for me, there was something about that Sheffield Wednesday win earlier in the season where that was us at our peak, at our very best, that in terms of the players, playing to their full potential. And yeah, with Clark on the left wing, Roberts still having bags of confidence despite not being in the best of form at the time. Well, at the end, throughout the season, of course. But yeah, the team just clicked together that night, and that was us in our prime, and it sadly just declined from there.
Yeah. Michael, have you got a favourite moment?
Does the season ending on Saturday count?
Well, possibly. But if it's that bad, I mean, what would make your YouTube highlight reel for this season? I know it's going to be a short clip, but
oh geez, oh goodness me. I'll tell you what, I'll make it a bit easy for you. I think to look at it in terms of the games, the 5-0 win over Southampton's easily the highlight for me. There was 2 games actually. That's one of them. The win over Southampton. I think Southampton, I remember, started fairly well the first 30 seconds, and then we went ahead within a minute, didn't we? And then once we went ahead, we just blew them away, which was just absolutely incredible. It was really, really, it was just the confidence, the way that our movement was that day. We flowed really well and took Southampton generally by surprise. A team that has finished, 87 points, I think they finished on. So, yeah, go on, Jacob, sorry.
I think that me forgetting that Southampton performance just shows what glimmer of
you mean what's happened since? What's happened since has been that. I was going to say what's happened since has been that bad that you've forgotten that. Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Southampton from that point of view. But I'll tell you another game that I actually thought was really good. And believe it or not, it was actually a game under odds. It was the home win over Leeds, where I felt that yes, we weren't free flowing, but I thought from a tactical perspective, we got it bang on that night. We really, really did. And it just goes, don't get me wrong, I don't want Mike Dodds anywhere near the head coach role. I'll make that clear. I don't want him anywhere near that role now, because the one good or reprieve about this bad run is that it at least answered the question about whether Mike Dodds should be anywhere near the head coach role, which is an emphatic no. He shouldn't be. But I think he made a point in that taking over from Beale was a lot harder than taking over from Mowbray. And I think if you look at that Leeds game in comparison, and I know that's obviously one game, but if you look at that in comparison to the games since post-Beale, it becomes clear how bad that Beale appointment was. Doddsy has got to take his own share of responsibility as well. But yeah, that Leeds home win, I think from a tactical point of view, we were great. But in terms of overall highlight, it was probably the Southampton home game. I remember coming away from the ground buzzing that day, because we've just demolished someone who'd been in the Premier League the year before and someone who had the players in there to mount a top 2 challenge, or at least be comfortably in the playoffs. What was yours?
That was my best and worst moment, because the great result, but then it set me up for this disappointment for the rest of the season. I'll probably agree with you, because it was one of the games I was doing commentary on where I could get excited about and get a roll going. It was great, that game. So that's probably is my highlight. Some of the goals we've had this season is brilliant. Watching Huggins come on and play brilliant for a couple of games until, that didn't last. We've had moments of greatness this season. And I could make a very good highlight reel, and it would look on, Netflix like we had a good season in the trailer. It's only when you watch the full season that, it looks
that's
like
a good trailer. Even when you're advertising crap.
Listen, it's all about the false advertising.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's probably the best. We'll go for worst one then. What's the worst game of the season? I know mine straight away, but I'll let you go.
I put my money on mine being the same as what Mike's thinking now.
Go on.
Definitely the Blackburn one, surely.
Definitely the Blackburn
100%.
Are we all
complete the hat trick, mate?
Yeah. Are you agreed with us there, Mr. Bowers?
Yeah, it's a hat trick in agreement there. I think you can mention the Newcastle debacle, but I think that's more where the game itself was crap, let's be honest. But that was more, the headline was around the build-up to that game rather than the game itself, even though the game wasn't very good. But that Blackburn one, what was Blackburn's stats? They hadn't won 18 games or something.
One win in 18, I think.
There you go. And it just... Who's the exact opponent you want to face when you want to end a bad run of form? Sunderland FC, that's who. So
Team of light as well.
Yeah.
It was just shambolic, wasn't it? It was absolutely awful, and it was hardly anyone came out of that game with any remote credit, and getting humiliated by a very, very a Blackburn side where people say without Jack Clarke's goals we would have been relegated. Without Sammy Smodics, where would Blackburn have been? So but doesn't matter. They had him, but yeah, it was just a shocking day all round.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's that was another result that was like every season we seem to have this, don't we? One terrific win and one terrific loss that's just completely out the blue. And you can't compare it to the Newcastle game, I think, because even though the result and the debacle beforehand and the terrible use of not using subs, at least we held our own against a Premier League team and didn't get embarrassed. How do we perform better there than we do against Blackburn?
Yeah, I'm stunned into silence with that question. I don't know how to answer that. No. I really don't know how to answer it.
Have you got theories, Jacob?
If I knew the answer to that, Michael, I'd bottle and sell it and throw it in the North Sea. Off-road.
Funny enough, you mentioned Beale, because I got information today, which would have been handy when it was relevant news. But my new boss for my new job knows Stuart English. Or knows his family and stuff like that. And apparently he's our head of coaching at Sunderland. And he's wanted to work with Beale before Mowbray even left. He's always wanted Beale. So he could have been the person that pushed for that. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, joy.
Don't mean to throw Mr. Stuart English under the bus, but
I've got a question for you lads, actually. The way how the season ended with Dodds being in the dugout and his shocking run of form that he had, does that would it have been even just a tad better if Beale stayed?
It's a fair question to ask, because if you look at Beale's record,
till the end of the season,
think of what we think about Beale. If you look at his record, it wasn't like dreadful, was it? If you actually look at I didn't want Beale then. I was happy when we got rid of him, but I think how many games did he have? Was it something like 12 games? 11 or 12 games or whatever it was.
The wins were against Stoke, Hull,
Preston,
yeah.
and Plymouth, I think.
Yeah,
so we had 4 wins in 12 games. It's not exactly, on the surface, it's not a sackable record, is it? But so I can see what you mean. Maybe arguably it might have slightly been better, but I think we're probably clutching. I think the problem is with Beale, the longer he stayed, I think the issue is because people didn't want Beale in the first place. The longer that we didn't win games and the more games we lost, the more toxic it probably would have got. Not saying it hasn't got toxic things, mind, but it's. I get what you mean.
The Newcastle game didn't help. I think if it would have been a cup tie against a different opponent, it might have been a little bit different.
Yeah. Quite possible.
You can't blame a manager for that kind of result when Newcastle's at the level they are at the moment. But it was
for the debacle around it either, can you?
But it was the lack of effort, not making changes till 85 minutes in. He lost me on not what his results were, not his coaching style. He lost me on his subs and just what looked like lack of tactical knowledge on the sideline. Which I'm sure he has, but we just didn't see it.
Well, I've heard with Beale that apparently he's one of those people that fits the criteria of a very good coach on the training ground. But when it comes to man management and when it comes to working with people, that's where he tends to struggle. The ultimate issue is, and I agree with you on the reactive management. I mean, that's one thing. I think Terry said it in the past with different Sunderland managers or head coaches. But for me, one thing I hate, the same as he does, is reactive managers or reactive head coaches, because if as a fan you can see what isn't working, someone who has the power to influence that somehow can't see the same thing. It absolutely boggles my mind. But you're right, Beale lost me on that regard. But some of the things he came out with, he didn't help himself either.
Shocking.
Yeah, exactly. But what the sad thing was for me, and I don't know what you two think, but even after the Plymouth game when we won, there was obviously that applause in the 4th minute, I think it was, for his niece, which obviously we hope she gets better because that's obviously more important than football. But there was a slight feeling there of we might actually want to Beale. There might actually be something there. The problem was we lost 2 games straight afterwards, and then you obviously had the Trey Hughes handshake debacle thing at Birmingham, and then it just all unravelled again.
Yeah. Do you think it was the losses themselves, or do you think it's the way we lost? the way we were playing. You know what I mean when I say that? Like, it just seemed like they weren't playing for him as a person. Jacob, do you not think?
Yeah, you get that, but at the same time, I think his tactical nous in order to change games wasn't working at all. It felt like if we conceded first in games, the game was completely done. We looked absolutely out of ideas in terms of getting back into it. But what was even more concerning, the fact that there was games under Bill where we scored first and we just capitulated in the second 45 minutes. And that could be, obviously, there is signs that is down to bad management. The fact that there wasn't, I know players have got to take responsibility, but at the same time, it's the fact that it was consistently happening shows that there was something not quite right behind the scenes.
Yeah, definitely. I was just looking for my big stick so I can poke Mr. Bowers with it, because I know often he disagrees with a lot of people on this one. Is it down to the model? Is it down to the model, though?
Okay, I'll tell you what then. To a degree, yes, it is.
Yeah.
To a degree, yes, it is. I think I've said before that, and I stand by that. I think the model in principle is a good thing. But my God, does it need tweaking? And if we don't tweak it this summer, in fact, you can hold me to this, because as you know, I've defended Speakman in particular in the past quite strongly. If he stays this summer, because we've heard these reports to Leon apparently, if he stays this summer and shows an infuriating amount of stubbornness, then I change my mind. He needs to go, because look, I mean, I'm sure we'll get onto that later. But to answer your question, this is down to the model. Where I do think Speakman in particular does deserve big criticism is the Beale appointment, because I've heard that appointment was his decision, was his choice to appoint Michael Beale. And if that's the case, then every bit of stick he gets for that is warranted. And I'll be right there giving it, because, you know, surely you, and don't get me wrong, I understand you're not gonna take into account, oh, let's not appoint someone because fans don't want him. That won't always work. But in this instance, you know, when you see what was the reaction when Beale was linked? It was universally negative, really. You would be very hard pressed to find as many people who wanted Beale. There would have been some, but the vast majority wouldn't have wanted him.
We've never had as many Rangers fans join the channel on live streams to warn us against him.
That's the point. So if you see all of this and you still appoint him, that is shocking. And even in the club statement or club article when they announced him, it was something like, "Oh, we had a 77% win record in Scotland." No. In Scotland, when it's a 2-horse race for the league, that is completely irrelevant. Like, you know, if you don't beat Celtic or win a title or win any trophies, you are deemed to be a failure. That's completely irrelevant. That return. And the problem is, even if you look again. See, this is why it's good to have me on if you're struggling for content, because I waffle on. But what I would say is, when it comes to the model, I do think it's a good thing, but it needs tweaking. You need to have some flexibility to it, because if you're not going to have that, you're not going to progress. And this is coming from someone who's a big fan of the model. You need to have a bit of flexibility around that. And also, a good head coach wouldn't go amiss this summer either.
Yeah, definitely. We'll touch on that in a second. Jacob?
Where you give Speakman a bit of leeway in terms of the players we brought in the past 2 or 3 transfer windows, particularly I'm more focusing on the ones he brought in last summer. They're young, developing players. A fair few of them have come from overseas as well. You know, this is going to be the first season you can have a bit of leeway, you know, getting used to the change in terms of the football, the culture, getting embedded into, you know, the style of being an effective championship player. But if there's no improvement in the second season, depending on which of these players stay, then questions need to be asked, because that's where the pressure is going to be on, because I know some of them have been linked, particularly Rushin, for example. He's linked for a move away already because he's not happy. But if the likes of also think about the ones he sent out on loan as well to get experience, Mayenda, Triantis. But if the likes of, you know, Rushin or Hamir, even though I don't think he will, I think he'll sadly go. But if they are somehow still at the club come the start of the season, the improvement needs to start now. Otherwise, the fans are going to be very, very irritated.
Can I just quickly add something, if you don't mind? Like, because we've already got the core of it. I do believe we've got the core of a very good side. What we need is massive in terms of because the thing is, what we need is a massive thing. So, like, say for example, experienced striker, ideally, or at least someone who's more proven, experienced central midfielder in the Corey Evans type, especially if he goes. You could argue we need two in that regard, really, but that one. So what?
The reports that he's gone. Apparently, they're not going to renew his.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I'm not surprised, to tell you the truth. But the point is, in terms of quantity, I don't think we need I don't think we need as much as what people think we do. But the things we do need are important things that we need, if that makes sense. So I think for me this summer, I think we've already got, like you mentioned, Jacob, like the signings of, just as an example, Auchish, Pembele, Hamir, Mienda, Sealt, Joe Bellingham to a lesser degree. These are all signings that are clearly longer-term prospects, because they obviously were on 4 or 5 year deals, weren't they? Or aren't they, I should say. But now you've got the youngsters, that's fine. But then this summer, if you're going for more youngsters again, you need to go for players who are established and proven in the Championship. You need to go for players who know this league. Know this league more. And I think you need a bit. And even as someone who has grown tired of the experience thing being a get out of jail free card for what I feel is a get out of jail free card for the younger players when they don't perform. Even I'm admitting now, you need some experience. You need to get someone in there. And if they don't adapt it this summer, then a lot of them, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people turn on them even more, and rightly so.
Yeah. We'll speak about the potential transfers shortly. I just want to go to the comments again before I lose track. Heavy Oscar, evening guys. New pitch is being installed before the season. Clubs starting to have investment in the club, hopefully soon into players as well, would be great. David Walker is saying the 5-0 Southampton game. I think that's the best moment. Alessandro Di Giancamillo, I hope I said that right, said immediately sell Clark to Lazio for £40 million. I think you're dreaming on that price tag, but yeah. Mickey Stewart said we don't need to sell Clark. He still has a 2-year contract. Welcome back, Michael. You've got lots of fans in here, Mr. Bowers. Heavy Huskar says Dodd's become more negative the longer he was in charge. Yeah, he seemed to lose a lot of heart. You could tell that every interview he did, I think. Michael Bowers as manager reads the game well, and we know he loves a clean sheet. There we go.
Yeah, I reply to that saying that sounds very dirty when you say it like that.
Heavy Oscar says surely Speakman looks like at fan forums and sees the negativity around Beale. Yeah, you'd think so. I think he did. My brother
around him.
My brother's in the chat. Steve Chappell, that's my brother. He said, needed a striker for years and need to get a manager who is also allowed to recruit. Yeah, so players or manager first. Let's do players first. Who's going? We'll come to you first, Jacob. I know we have no say, no control. Big offers come in. But who do you expect to lose before the start of the season?
I think the fairly obvious one is definitely Jack Clark, even though he's ended the season not in the best of football. Well, let's obviously take into account that he has come back from a bad injury, but I think they'll be looking to get the best possible deal out of him going as they can. I mean, but I don't think this one will be as straightforward. I think this one could drag on again. I think he could potentially even be here right up until the start of the season, and then he'll go because they'll want the best price. I think they'll want to assess how many clubs come in for him over the next couple of weeks and narrow down the options in terms of what they're offering.
Yeah. What do you think, Mr. Bowers? Who do you expect to lose? Clark being the obvious one. Is there anybody else that think we're going to lose that we're really going to miss? Obviously, during January, we had rumours of Patterson, everyone going somewhere. So,
I think, because again, I think I've seen a lot of people go that we'll sell all of our assets, and I don't think that that's true. I think I think Sunderland can't afford to sell any more than, that wouldn't be a bad deal, would it, if Joe was loaned back for 2 seasons? Do you know what, right? I think Sunderland can afford. Well, I say afford, not really, but Sunderland can lose up to 2 assets. One of them being Clark. So you could lose Clark and one other as long as you A, replace them adequately, and B, don't lose anybody else. Because even if you sold 4 or 5 of your assets, and even if you got big money, that's a lot to do in one window on top of what we already need to do. So I would, if we lost more than 2 of our assets, I'd be concerned. To answer your question, who I think will go, Clark. Jacob's covered it. Clark's the obvious one. I think we'll lose one other asset potentially, but I don't know who it would be. It could be. Sorry?
Neil, I think, would be the second obvious one.
See, I think because of Neil's injury, I think that makes it much less likely that he goes. It depends how long he's out.
How serious is his injury?
Well, that's the point. Well, I've heard he was out for something like 3 months from the point where he got injured. So that would mean he'd be out until the back end of August. So maybe psychologically, Neil's very clever here because he's got himself injured when we've been safe, and we're going to keep him next season. Oh God! See, this is how bad things are when you get into conspiracy theories, don't you?
Nobody's mentioned he has played a lot of football, though. To be fair,
point out, no, absolutely. For me, I think it's imperative we keep Dan Neil next season. But I think my point was going to be, sorry, Mike. On the other asset, I would argue it'll be any from Patterson. I think, okay, I'm going to stick my neck on the line. I think we'll keep Ballard and Neil. I don't know what it is. It's not based on anything, but it's a gut feeling.
I hope we keep Ballard, but I think that could be a battle.
It could be. Well, it depends because when we look at it this way, from the other assets, Patterson, Ballard, Neil, Trey Hume, as much as he's had a crap season, Pierre Ekwa will be viewed as an asset. So I think maybe another one of those alongside Jack Clark. Who it is, I have no idea. To answer your question on what was it about? They got to think of it as well. Some of these players are going to be under contract for quite a few years now because Dan Ballard's under contract till 2027, for example. So Sunderland are in a position where we should be able to demand a fair chunk of money. And if people aren't willing to pay it, we're not under pressure to sell them. The only way we would be is if these players are actively wanting to force a move.
Yeah, but that could be the thing, couldn't it? Because I think we underpay a lot of our players. When you look at the wages that we're allegedly paying some people compared to others, I think there's a lot of players that are very underpaid, and a chance of a lucrative contract, if we stopped them taking that could really backfire on us when it comes to on the pitch.
Yeah. I think where, in terms of these players, where these players are going to go, I think it's also so vital that we don't look to sell them to another championship rival. I think
I agree with that.
Fine. I think you've probably heard this week Clark linked with a move to Ipswich. I think that would make sense a lot. They've just come up. They're looking to get someone who will be relatively decent in terms of talent for someone to improve playing at that level, considering his age and the money that they'll be able to get him for him and the money they'll be able to put him on a week, considering they've just been promoted. That would be a sensible club to sell if Clark's going to go.
Can I just point out something? Do you think with Clark, because a club I'd be looking at maybe if he had, well, obviously if he has to go, which we expect him to, Leicester for me wouldn't be a bad shout. And the reason I say Leicester is because Tom Cannon's on their books, and I reckon if we're smart, we could try and use that as part of the deal to get him to come here. Because I'll give you an example. Because I'm saying that I was talking to a Leicester fan in a panel chat that I'm in on Twitter, actually, funnily enough, and he sent me a link from a Leicester fan saying, "Get it done, Leicester." In other words, Leicester fan want to sign Jack Clark, and I said, "All right then, £15 million plus Tom Cannon," and he said he would take that. Now, obviously, just because one Leicester fan says it doesn't mean that is what will happen. But the point is, wait, let me ask you, either of you here, would either of you take Tom Cannon if that was a possibility?
Yeah, I think I would.
He's an option, but there's others that could potentially slot into Clark's position, which I think will just be as good as I can understand Bowers, but one man, I think, obviously, I can understand why. Is it Liam Miller who was on loan at Preston?
Yes.
Why he could slot into that club. I think he's done very well for them, particularly in the second half of the season. But I think one person who has the nous for this league and has the technical ability that can do Clark's role, I think he could potentially play as a false nine and out wide as well is that Elias Chair from QPR. Yeah, he would be someone that I'd be looking at.
The only problem with him is the legal battle he's facing at the minute, isn't it? He could be facing potential jail time.
In January, we were banding round numbers like 20 million for Clark and stuff like that, you know, but that was in January. The point made there by Steve is they did themselves no favours in respect to the values because of finishing in the league. Can we still demand that from Clark after his? I mean, it's not just where we finished in the league. His end to the season, his last few games, not as impressive. Has his value dropped because of that? Do you think?
Potentially, I think clubs will look at the fact that what was it? Was it a hamstring injury that he was out for?
Yeah, and he came back. No, was it ankle? I can't think off the top of my head. But he came back.
He was kept out for 6 weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he came back sooner than expected as well. So I'm not sure how.
Probably because we weren't safe.
Yeah. So yeah, it's. I mean, people are still saying in the chat there 25 million minimum. I mean, you'd love to demand that, but I'm not sure he commands that value anymore. Anyway, with Beale being a topic of subject and things like and Dodds and obviously Mowbray, what's next? What's next? Because the rumor mill, like as soon as I think that final whistle went, the rumors started flying in left, right, and centre. They have been going since Beale, but I've read today Gus Poyet's interested in being the head coach. That's in the Echo.
Well, Poyet's been linked to probably about the last 6 occasions we've got rid of a manager, hasn't he? His name's always going to crop up, but I think the way how his last job ended, being Greek national boss, being unable to beat, I think it was Georgia over, was it 2 legs or 1? They got knocked out on penalties, but it's not gone too well for him since he left us back in 2015, really.
Yeah, he just wants to return to his own glory days then, do we think? Who's your favourite, Mr. Bowers? Who do you want to come in? Head coach / manager / chief water boy, whatever they're going to call it. Yeah.
I'll say head coach. Because when you said who's my favourite to come in, I thought, do you mean who I think will come in or who do I want to come in? Because they're 2 different answers.
Give me both.
Right, okay. Gut feeling, who I think it will be, and I don't know which one, but I think it will be one of these 2. It'll be one of Will Still or Rennie Marich. I think Marich, I've heard as well, but just spoilers, Barry Anthony Wing has mentioned who I want to come, along to Sunderland, who I presume is that's my answer. That's who I want, and quite passionately want as well, actually, which sounds wrong. Okay, I very much want to be the next Sunderland gaffer in the hot seat, but I think it will be one of Will Still or Rennie Marich. I've heard Rennie Marich is a bit similar to Danny Role in terms of profile, obviously, but that's before Danny Role's gone to get some experience in the Championship. Will Still, I wouldn't be shocked if that ends up happening because it seems too much of a coincidence that he's been sacked from Reims and our season has just happened to have finished. So I think wasn't he who we were after before we ended up getting to it? But the problem was we weren't willing to pay compensation.
And he wasn't allowed to bring his own staff in. And there's rumours, but where there's more positivity on more truth about potentially him coming in, apparently he has been, I don't know how much truth there is in this, but it's just something I've heard. He's been looking at houses in the area as well.
Yeah. I don't want to fuel the rumour mill, but I'm going to.
The rumour
I was going to say, you might have to show it so I can see it.
Yeah. So if you can see that, the bottom one, you probably can't. The bottom one's Will Still. Really. Anyway, someone commented on one of Will Still's Instagram. This is a verified, it's his account, saying in French, I think it is, is he going to be in Belgium or England? And all he replied was an English St. George's flag and an emoji like this. And that's it. So whether it's us or not, I think he has got something lined up in this country. So,
well, that was the point, because now he's been sacked, he won't require compensation, will he? And that's what makes me think that there's a possibility for him. John Ruddick.
Yeah, Andy's finished that coaching badge that would.
Yeah, has he finished that? I'm hearing different reports whether he's finished it or not.
He put a photo up of the last day of the course about 3 days ago, I think.
Well, funny enough, right? Because John Ruddock, I often disagree with quite heavily here, but I actually agree with him on Still. Oh, bye, Mike. I agree with him. He must be so shocked that I agree with someone. Where he said Will Still would be a gamble. I don't know about you, Jacob. For me, a lot of people are fancying Will Still because of the name, but I don't know what happened there. Unless Conrad in the scenes, he's just evilly plotting everybody to come out. Wouldn't put it past him, but Will Still, for me, I'm not as sure on as a lot of people are. I don't know whether it's because I think the difference is, I mean, I've just lost the comment. Where is it? Oh yeah, Barry put Danny. Oh yeah, Barry just put that a minute ago. Oh yeah, compensation will be required for Danny Roll. The reason I bring this up is because we were linked with Will Still in December, but that required compensation, and I believe it was quite hefty as well. Danny Roll would require compensation. The big difference between the two of them for me, Danny Roll has proven in about 9 months how good he can be at championship level. And I know people might look at it on the surface level and go, oh, well, he kept Sheffield Wednesday up. That squad he had to work with at Sheffield Wednesday on paper, isn't very good. And the fact he's got them, I mean, he signed a couple of decent additions in January, to be fair. But my point is, he's managed to get that squad to the point where they finished 3 points behind us. And we saw firsthand on Saturday how well drilled they are. And even if you look at their first goal, like how well the build-up was to it. So I think Danny Roll, with compensation, and I usually agree with not paying compensation for head coaches, but with Danny Roll, I think there's an exception when someone I believe will be very, very good, they are worth going for. Do I think it'll happen? So to get back at your question, I don't think Danny Roll would happen, but that's who I would want. Yeah. I think it'll be Will Still. I think it'll be Will Still or Rennie Marriage.
Yeah. So what's your kind of breakdown of that, Jacob? Who do you think's going to come in? Who's most likely, and who do you want?
If it's the two that Bowers mentioned, if those are the two that are fighting for the position, I think looking at
your brother, by the way. Sorry, just had to put that out there.
What's that? What's that?
No, it was just Mike's brother put the Sheffield Wednesday manager saved the club from relegation, saying Danny Roll is the reason Sheffield Wednesday are a championship club.
Oh yeah, completely.
And I've got a lot of time for Sheffield Wednesday, by the way, but
where were they when he took over?
They were something like they were rock bottom with like 3 points. I'll put it out there: if Kieran McKenna hadn't had the season he's just had at Ipswich, Danny Roll would have been manager of the season.
Yeah,
that's a fair point.
But sorry, Jacob.
Yeah, back to if it's between Marich and Still, based on the two record, probably I'd edge more towards Marich in terms of the connections he'll have in the game and what he'll be able to bring to the table in terms of developing you, considering he's just got a tad more experience than what Still has.
Yeah. And do you think that's who they will go for as well, or is that just your choice?
Yeah, I don't know, because Still's actually had a head coach role. Marich has not had that yet, but Marich has been in the game a lot longer and has managed in a league where I think there's more competitiveness compared to, was it the French league that Will Still's been managing in?
Yeah. There's some interesting players rumours flying in here. Somebody's just said Bristol Ollie Mackham said Simon Mignolet is going to be offered to Sunderland. Apparently, I'd take him. It'd be a good experience.
I've heard that as well.
Honestly, the rumours are Peter Reid turned a relegation threatened side into title winners. I'd love to get Peter Reid back. Roll looks like he can. Beale couldn't. So I think a lot of people are agreeing with you guys on that. Definitely.
Ask you, Mike, then, what's yours? Who would you want and who do you think it will be?
I think very similar. That I think it's Will Still's the front runner. I think they've been going for him because of how much the fans wanted him when we got Beale, and how much positive vibes. So they need a win with the fans, this ownership. So they think he's
remember that Still was the ultimate first choice after the Mowbray sacking.
Yeah.
And went completely down the drain, and we were forced to go in a different direction and look further down the pecking order and get Beale in. So it's round 2 now. If they want their man, let's go.
But so I think that's the way we're gonna go. I like the look of the guy. I'm not sure if it's all bluster, like you say, but somebody more experienced like Roll would be good. I'm not opposed to a lot of managers. All these rumours coming up, because we've had Beale and Dodds. Half the rumours that come up, I think, he'll do a job. Gus Poyet do a job, you know. Phillips coming in from Heart, he'll do a job, you know.
Yeah, get Paolo Di Canio knee sliding while we're at it. Why not?
Yeah, Arca's in management now. He'll do a job.
If it is still be interesting to see how he gets improvement out of the current French players at the club, the likes of Bar and
He's fluent in both languages, isn't he? Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I tell you, this is my answer for you, Michael. It's Will Still is who I think, who I want is a manager, not a head coach. That's my only stipulation.
Okay.
So
who is that manager?
A good quality manager. But as long as it's a manager, not a head coach, Allardyce, anyone, I don't care if it's an old manager we've had before. I don't think it's a new manager. Will Still I quite like. I just don't like the idea of somebody else coming in a head coach having to play players like Burstow when they don't want to.
Oh God, Burstow. Yeah, we'll move on with that. All right then. So does that mean then that you would like to have Mr. Married Man with 6 kids back?
Which one?
Chris Coleman.
Oh, I'd love Coleman. I love Coleman. He got a bum deal with that takeover. I liked. Why I like him? A manager with passion. That's what I like.
So have I said Simon Grayson or David Moyes?
No, neither have passion. Both look like grey winter pictures.
To be clear, when you say bring a manager in, you mean someone who's good enough and has passion. Not someone who
slides down the thing on his knees, going like this. Someone like similar to that.
Listen, obviously, Moyes' attitude stank in the first few months he was with us, but you have to remember the club was in a toxic predicament when he first came in. It was a very tough, summer in terms of us losing the manager and him trying to get a tune out of a very deflated squad. But there's no doubt in terms of what Moyes has achieved aside that job, he is still a very, very good manager for what he's more for, I'd say, a Premier League appointment than a Championship.
Yeah. DJ Sizzler Watson, how about Phillips as Reed's number 2? Reed as number 2. Reed would never be somebody's number 2, I don't think. Especially not somebody he used to shout at. Last Palmer's backup, doesn't matter who manages unless we buy 2 scoring centre forwards next season. Anyone who can score goals. Do you think a new striker coach is needed though for that? I mean, we're look who our strikers are learning from.
Well, okay then. Just to put it out there, Jermaine Defoe was striking coach if he was willing to do that.
Yes,
I'd be all for that.
That's the thing. He doesn't want.
No, he doesn't. He wants
the main bread and butter role at the club.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's a sore subject. Alex Neil, would you have him back?
No comment. I still have very negative
managers me, so no.
Jacob will probably know at the time I have very resentful feelings towards Alex Neil, and nothing's changed. That's all I'll say. Right.
Well, Sunderland had their awards for the players. I mean, it's a bit of a sham awarding players that did so terribly, but Jacob, I believe you know some of the results from this. But do you agree with them? Player of the season, was it Clark?
Yes, it's obvious, isn't it? In terms of what he did to get us in around the playoffs where we were up until I'd say, was it end of January, beginning of Feb? If it weren't for his contributions, we potentially could have gone down, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Michael?
Yeah, I think Jack Clark's the obvious one for player of the season. I would throw another shout into it, and I don't know how unpopular opinion this is, but I think Dan Neil deserves to be in there. I think for me, Dan Neil's been easily one of our most consistent performers, which, again, isn't saying much considering a lot of our players have been this season. But yeah. I think I like Dan Neil quite a lot. But yeah, Jack Clark's the one who deserves it.
I joke and say that none of them deserve awards, but I think it could have been a close race because I'd have had Ballard up for something like that, just for pure consistency through it. Funniest moment's got to be Hand of God from 09, and
What's it?
Double hand.
Don't mind me.
Yeah.
Volleyball now. He's not playing football.
What other awards did we have, Jacob? Do you know?
So Clark obviously got the Player of the Season award.
Is there Young Player of the Season as well?
There was. I'm just getting it up now. So I know that.
I'm not even joking. I wouldn't have complained giving it to Chris Rigg, Young Player of the Season at this point.
I'm sure Neil got that.
Yeah, Dan Neil did.
Oh, he did. Okay, in which case, yeah, he deserved it.
Yeah, Chris Rigg did get an award though for being the youngest player to make an appearance for Sunderland ever. The youngest scorer.
Did Dak win anything?
No.
Hang on, do you mean with Sunderland or with Love Island?
Highest paid waste of space.
Have more minutes on ITV.
Yeah.
I know exactly.
Other awards, Pierre Requa won Community Player of the Season.
All right, okay.
I forgot there was an award for that.
Right.
And Dan Neil got Young Player of the Season. He still falls into that category.
There you go.
Okay.
He can be given it.
Who would be your disappointment of the season as an award?
Oh
Mr. Bowers?
God, where do you start? There's Go on. No, go on.
Pick one. I was just going
I have to pick one. Just one.
It's an award.
Yeah, just one.
I'll pick one, to be honest.
Oh, I'm trying to think. I've got two in my head straight away, but I'm trying to decide who's been more disappointing out of the two of them. Oh my God. Okay, I'll tell you what. For what his potential, for what I know how good he is technically, the fact he hasn't scored a goal this season and has only got one goal contribution is poor. You can probably guess where I'm going with this. Patrick Roberts, I think.
Ooh.
I do wonder how much of it is down to the fact he's missing Ahmad because they had a really, really good link together. But I'll tell you what, yeah, I was just going to mention, Cole's just beat me to it. Another shout out would be Equa. Given the stats, given how good he was at the end of last season, the drop and the start of this, I would even argue, the drop off has been absolutely immense.
That bad injury he had in September, he was never the same after that, was he?
That dead leg.
Was that
dead leg? I know it's only a dead leg, but I'm pretty sure there was more to it than that. Sure.
The thing is, it felt like a dead leg that was more like a broken leg, the amount of times he was out for.
Yeah. It's dead legs much more severe if they're made of glass. Jacob, who would your disappointment of the season be?
Dak's definitely up there, but yeah, I based it on in terms of minutes they had on the pitch, but also taking into account their injury record as well. And if they have had, was it more minutes on the pitch without many injuries being picked up, then you're more eligible for me for that award. I think probably in terms of, I know he's a young player still developing, but that's probably half the squad right now. I think in terms of what he offered in pre-season, Hamir, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there is quite a few candidates. Hamir would be up there with me. Equa, only disappointing because I know he can do better. I think that's exactly in my mind. But this is a rare occurrence, and it burns me deep down inside to agree with this man because he's a relative. But I think Job has disappointed me more than anybody else this season. And that may be because he's had more game time out of all of them, and he's played every game. And it's not even his ability. It's sometimes it looks like he can't get the ball out of his feet, but it looks like his attitude to me. It looks like he just doesn't care, not running for it, not trying, backing out of challenges.
I think he was burnt out. Me.
Potentially. I hope you're right.
I think you will see the real Joe Bellingham next season. I'm putting it on there now.
Hang on, so Jacob, is that with Sunderland or is that with someone?
Yeah.
I don't get, for me, these moves that he's been linked with. Are they watching the right player?
They just see the surname. They just see the surname.
I mean, I know that in the game today, they're thinking, well, better management could get a tune out of a talented player rather than someone who's in form. But yeah, for me, there's still a lot more to be done. But I think now he's had his first full season playing consistently. I think when he gets a decent pre-season under his belt, I know he had that last year, but now he's got experience of that first time around. I think next season we'll see. But he has to be fully certain of whatever manager comes in has to use him in the right way, play him where he will be most effective on the pitch. And I don't think we've done ourselves well in that department in terms of where we've played him over the season.
No, you're right, and also as well, he's just been completely burnt out, as you said before. I think he's just been really, really ridiculously overplayed.
It was the same situation as you remember Dan Neil in League One. Neil came. Was it Alex?
No, you're
Neil
right. Good comparison.
He said, "Well, he didn't say anything really. He just basically made a change straight away, took him out the side because he was playing consistently, and that for me that helped him develop going into the start of next season."
It did. Well, but to be fair to Job, if you look at it statistically, I think in his first full season, when he's been playing probably as a false 9, number 10, or even sometimes central midfield, he's got something like 7 goals in his first season, which for the fact he hasn't even turned 19 yet. I think that's respectable. I think that's a respectable first season, but I think the problem hasn't been. I think it's obviously been. I think to me, Jacob. I think the last few games of the season, I think he just looks absolutely on his arse. I think he just looks absolutely dead on his feet, and I think that's down to well, whether Speakman picks the team or not. If that is him, then that's shocking. But there's obviously rumours going around with that. But I mean, whoever ended up keeps picking him constantly, I think that's really, really poor.
I've got one. What do you guys think of Trey Hume this season?
I think he's done more good than bad. He's had a few clangers moments, but I think...
But compared to what he was like the previous year.
Yeah, his timing on tackles, I think he's been a fundamental part of that defence. And I think he would be somebody we have to keep hold of, personally.
But were you a tad disappointment in terms of you thought he may have kicked on further, considering how good he was in that 22-23 season?
I mean, he might be at his peak of ability. And he might be one of those players that looks great in some of these championship games, but he could be one of those, if we went to the Premier League, wouldn't stand a chance. You don't know. I understand what you mean. It's nice season upon season to see a player progress and develop really well, but sometimes they do peak, Yeah. Look at Dak. He peaked 10 years ago, and we still signed him.
To be fair on Trey Hume, though, like this has also been his first full season at Sunderland. Because remember, the previous season he didn't come into it until probably halfway through, did he?
He had to earn his place,
Yeah, so this is the first time he's played consistently throughout the entirety of the season. I don't think he got an injury. At least not a serious one. Not from what I can remember. So I do get your point. I think I do get the point. It's compared to because I think he was immense at the end of last season, but TV personality of the year, I like that. But yeah, I can see what Jacob means about Hume, but I'm with you, Mike. I think he's definitely done a lot more good than I think that hasn't been so good.
Yeah, the disappointment question was a great question, so thanks for that, Michael.
Can I just point out, a more accurate question would have been top 5 most disappointments. Then you
to answer Mike's question, I didn't do it before. Mine would be Roberts.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say the consensus in the chat is Ekwa and Roberts. By the way, and Speakman. There's a few
this year, definitely.
Yeah, there's a few for Dak, but again, I don't think he doesn't have enough time on the pitch to even justify a wooden spoon award.
Just
Roberts, one. If you compare Ekwa and Roberts has been obviously a lot more technically gifted than what Ekwa is as a player. I know they're 2 different positions, but also Roberts has had more experience compared to what Ekwa had.
So based on that, Roberts, keep or sell?
Well, he signed a new contract, didn't he? So it looks like he's going to stay.
I get that, but if an offer came in,
what money are we talking?
I don't know what his value is. 4 million.
Do you think we're going to get that after the season he's had?
Given he's got 2 years left on his contract, I'd say we would.
Yeah, but would you keep or sell if the choice is there? I think he's a lot to offer still.
I think he does. I would say keep just because I think he's better than he's shown this season. But if in a year's time or 6 months or next January we're still having this conversation, then my answer will probably be different.
Yeah, I've said this to countless people. If it's still that's going to get the job, the first major big task he needs to do is put his arm around Roberts and get his confidence built up again. Because there is a player in there, and you don't just lose it like that. You know, he could be so valuable to this team next season, but just really rekindle his form from what he had the previous campaign. But Ahmad helped him a lot.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, let's be fair. If we sold Roberts and then Ahmad came in, how disappointed would you be then? Because what a team they make together, you know.
Well, if we're seeing as we're probably going to sell Clark, I think we need to keep Roberts then, just in case Ahmad comes back.
Well, Manchester United's having a fire sale, so hopefully we'll
see about that.
I mean, we're coming up to the hour mark nearly, so we're probably coming to the end, because we could literally go on about managers, players, and potential signings, which we will do throughout the entire off season on the channel, no doubt. But yeah, if do you want to say your goodbyes, Jacob?
See you later, guys. Hope you have a nice break from SAFC, and I've been dying to get this off my chest for ages. Actually, bring on the Euros. Is football coming home this summer? Hopefully, it will.
Yeah, I'm not even going there. I'm having a break from football. Full stop. There is no Euros.
Is it hit you that bad? It's really caused the overwhelming feeling.
Yeah, definitely. Need a recovery break. Mr. Bowers, absolute pleasure to always have you on the channel as a guest. Thank you for being here. If you'd like to say your goodbyes.
Thanks very much, everybody, for watching. I'll say Jacob's phrase for him: "Keep the faith," because it's always his trademark phrase, which is great.
I know. Look, he's lost the faith.
Effects hit me.
He's lost the faith.
No way. It's because he says keep the. He says keep the faith.
Break, but I've even lost my willpower to say it, so Bowers can have this.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Joe, at the end of every season, I almost get to the point where I'm mentally burnt out.
That's another right. Keep the faith. But what fixtures are we even playing in pre-season? How long is it going to take for them to announce? We know where we're playing. That's near Alicante, but who's our opponents?
It's a couple of Sunday League clubs, because we can get a win.
They've got the faith that they'll just wing it and everything will be all right.
They've wrote to every pub to say if they've got a team.
What's this? The world's end now? Go on a pub call in Benidorm, wherever the hell it is we're going. To answer Jacob's question on the Euros with Southgate, I doubt it. I don't think it'll come home, but hopefully it does. The other thing is, that's it. At the end of every season, I get emotionally and mentally burnt out watching Sunderland. So I think we're definitely in need of a break. But yeah, thanks guys for welcoming us back. It's been nice. And as I said earlier with Jack, thoughts are with his friends and family. But there's next season's a new season. But yeah, I think we need a break.
Yeah. Well, thank you from me, everyone who's tuned in. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and where have you been all season? And don't forget to check out Mr. Bowers' channel. There, I think that's your YouTube channel as well. Is it?
It's literally just your name. That's it.
Yeah. So and you can catch up with Jacob on Twitter there as well. So don't forget to give them a follow. And I will leave us off with Jack. So bye for now.
Thank you. As I always say, we would just be three lads talking ourselves if we didn't have people watching and commenting. So you contribute to the show. So thanks for getting involved. Hopefully we'll get the win on Saturday, a long overdue home win. And I'll see everybody later, lads and masses.